Hi, I'm Marcus Kent Hamson. This is In Frame.
Live from Black Lodge Video in Memphis, Tennessee, In Frame, with special guest Willy Bearden, and featuring Marcus Kent Hamson. And your hosts, J. Lazarus Hawk and Jamie Hall. Hello, I'm J. Lazarus Hawk.
I'm Jamie Hall.
And we are Rising Fire. Welcome to In Frame. Our first guest this evening is going to be one of our own, Marcus Kent Hamson. Usually behind the scenes. One of the few times we're going to pull him out in front of the camera here for a minute. He has been our editor, our primary cinematographer, our tech person, our gopher, our, good Lord, just about every job that there is you've had to do. Not that one.
Not yet. He hasn't yet put that on the resume yet.
But because of the wealth of work that is lying ahead of us with Nature of the Beast and a couple of other projects that we're doing on the cinema side of our work, we have decided that Rising Fire is going to break apart. Kent is going to start, or has already started, a new company called New Sun, which is focusing on the corporate and commercial work. Will continue to still work with us on certain projects, but basically is going out freelance, corporate and commercial. So you've been doing this about a month now, and you've had at least 6 clients already that I know of.
I've had a lot. Many of those were repeat customers that I've been doing video for as long as 6 years on some of them. It's just I've always done work for them, but I've got a lot of new jobs as well, and it's been interesting. I do mostly events, but I'm moving into doing some corporate work. Done some videos for Chiropractic Memphis, and I've got a few other organizations and businesses that are I'm talking with about doing videos for them.
And not to completely step away from the art world, you also just recently did something for Raw
Artists.
Artists. Okay,
Yes.
I never get that right.
Yeah, they do an artist showcase all types of artists, whether that's visual artists, film, music, painters, dancers, performers, everything.
It's kind of like what we do here, just a different format.
Yeah, it's just one. They're all in Minglewood Hall. They each have a booth space. The performing artists get a chance to go up on stage. They had a fashion show where designers could showcase their work. One lady makes purses, and those were carried by the models during the fashion show. It was a lot of fun. I was kind of real glad to get that job because that's what I live for.
Right.
I was
all the artists.
Yeah, it was kind of fun because we had to do interviews of all of the artists, and as people were coming in, I knew some of them personally, and knew some of them just by name because I follow the art world, and it kind of threw the production assistant off. She's like, "Do you know everyone in this city?" It's like, just
well,
about.
between the work we've done over the years, just the two of us, you've worked with just about every filmmaker in town, I think. And then in the last year and a half or so, as Rising Fire, we stepped out and we knocked down like dozens and dozens of new doors. And one of the reasons we've undergone this separation is because the film being our passion, for Jamie and I especially, kind of overshadows the amount of corporate work we had the experience with, and we were finding that a lot of people were seeing us only as a film company and weren't realizing that the corporate side was available, despite the fact that we had the Health Institute video, the BOCI TV things, and a few other things to show. With New Sun, you're actually going out and you're establishing a corporate identity.
Right. One of the things with me doing the corporate videos is because I spent 15 years working in the corporate world.
Right.
And I've worked anywhere from, in a furniture warehouse for a corporation, a department store, to doing data entry at that same department store, as well as I worked in customer service and in a call center. I was a manager, or I was a team lead. I managed a team of people in a call center. So I've been through all the corporate training. I understand how corporate people think. And to be honest, you two really aren't into the corporate world.
No, and that makes sense. I mean, like I said, our passion is the film. And for the first year
Oh,
as
come off
Rising
of it.
Fire,
We just don't look the part.
we definitely don't look the part. But we were doing a good job of it.
We were, but
with the work that you've done on Nature of the Beast, we are reaching a point where we won't have time
yeah.
Right.
to play in that world. And, you know, quite frankly, Kent still needs to make a living. So this was really the only viable solution. And we knew a year and a half ago that this was a potential problem, or not a problem, but a potential outcome. Because we do want to focus more on telling stories and making films. We were looking at the corporate commercial as a way of making an income. It's helped us out and it's gotten us through, but Nature of the Beast is going to take all of our time.
Yeah, you
And
guys,
it
you
already
guys have
has.
a, you guys
I
have
was
a
gonna
lot
say-
of time to put onto that, and I'm still going to be there to help, but not as involved because I'm
Exactly.
going to be doing other work. In the month of August, I did 6 productions.
I mean, you're my roommate for those that might not know, and for the month of August, I think I saw you 3 times,
Yeah, because
just because of cross scheduling.
Yep, I did an Erengatram, which is a dance recital for an Hindu religious dance style for Bharatanatyam. I spent a week shooting for King of the World, the Elvis Tribute Artist Championship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was 5 nights where I was running a camera so they could live stream the competition. I've done a couple of interviews, and what else have I done? I can't even remember right now.
So
Memphis
the Raw-
chiropractic.
You've done a
Oh,
couple of the
the-
Raw things.
Yeah,
Yeah, a couple
I
of the
did
raw things.
I did the interviews for the Raw Artist. I did the Raw Artist Showcase, and
Did you end up doing the B-roll for Tura at all?
I actually did shoot some of the behind the scenes
Thought
for Tura. That was the same day that I shot the interviews
I
for
was gonna
Raw
say, that
Artist.
was a one-day.
Yeah, that was a long day, but that was fun. And most recently, I actually shot the Southern Shimmy Show burlesque show,
Right.
which was just a few days ago.
Which was one of our previous
Right,
guests.
Cherry Cheesecake.
Cherry Cheesecake, and these were new or newer.
New. Several of them, it was their first time on stage.
Okay.
But there were a couple of established acts as well. A lady, I cannot remember her name. She did an aerial act, like hanging from the ceiling, and it was phenomenal. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Now, again, you won't be completely stepping away from all things in the art side. You are going to continue as one of our producers and co-producers here, as well as one of our engineers.
Yeah.
You still have a few things on the editing table that are Rising Fire that you're working with, most notably Nature of the Beast.
Which is looking pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's looking
Yeah,
really, really
it's
good.
looking.
We are planning a project that's not really something I want to overly discuss right now, but you and I have a smaller project that we're kind of doing under the table while some other things happen.
Right. And I also have my own project.
And I was going to mention you have a project that you are working on yourself, a feature length, as well as you will still continue to work with other filmmakers in town.
Right. I've worked with one of my favorite filmmakers in town to work with is Dan Baker and the Timid Monster team.
I was actually going to bring that
That
up.
was
as we
one of
get
the other
ready to-
things I shot in August. I knew there was something else. That was one
Right.
of the other projects.
And I was going to bring that up as we get ready to get out and bring in Willy Bearden. You shot with Dan Baker, but you've shot with him several times.
Yes.
And of course, Dan Baker, another guest we've had recently, someone who all of us here at Rising Fire at InFrame absolutely adore the man. I think he is one of the more gifted people we have in this city as a filmmaker and just as a person in general.
Yeah, he's very
He's a great guy to be around.
he's very smart. He's very passionate. He's very goofy and just a lot of fun to work with.
But he is focused. He is professional, and he brings all of it. to the table.
Yeah, and well, like I said, he's just one of the filmmakers I've worked with. I'm real excited to hear what Willy has to say because I was actually on set while they were filming One Came Home. I was asked to shoot the behind the scenes. So if you get a copy of the DVD and go to special features, there's a 22-minute long behind the scenes featurette that was completely shot and produced by me 3 years ago for Willy Bearden. And being on set with Ryan Parker, Brent Shrewsbury, Michael Hunkley.
He had a phenomenal crew.
And Shelley Gillette was the first AD, and just phenomenal actors, and of course Willy himself. Watching Willy interact with his cast.
That's
and crew
actually something I'm envious of. I wish I could have been there for that.
It was. I mean, I was actually only on set 6 days of the shooting, because I really didn't have to be there every day to shoot a behind the scenes.
I can well imagine just
fun.
what you'd learn from him in one day.
Oh yeah, those 6 days on set was like 2 years of college education.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, I learned so much, and it's just. I mean, right after that, when we started working on another project, you noticed things start to change in the way
absolutely.
I did things.
And over the course of the last 2 years, the changes and growths that all three of us have managed to put into place in each of the projects. I mean, like you said, nature of the beast. When this trailer is finished, it really is going to be one of the most polished pieces of work we have.
Yeah, I've spent about, we ended up with almost 2 hours of footage.
For the trailer?
For the trailer,
trailer, yeah.
Which was ungodly. 2 hours of footage. So when I'm like watching this, I actually
guess better to have it than not.
I actually rendered out all the footage just in a timeline, and watched it like 3 times, just watching it, trying to figure out, okay, I like that piece, I like that piece. So I knew what was available when I started editing. And I started editing, I knew where I wanted to put stuff, and I got these ideas of actually mishmatching the scenes, because it's there. When you watch the trailer, I didn't put them together linear.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's
So
almost linear, but
yeah,
then there's these
there's-
jumps.
this scene. I put this scene in front of this one, and when in the script they're not really that way.
But as a trailer,
it works.
You're playing a different game.
Right.
You're enticing. With most trailers, the idea is to entice an
Entice the
audience to go
audience.
put their butt in a seat.
With this one,
But with this is a promotional trailer
Yeah.
designed. I mean, we're not even going to have the same cast.
No.
This is designed to impress financiers.
Right.
It's not about an audience, so it's a different animal altogether.
Right, and it's a little longer than a typical trailer, but this is a promotional trailer, like you
Right.
said, to drum up interest. And I've talked to people, and they said, 5-6 minutes is reasonable for a promotional trailer when you're using it for financing. For a theatrical trailer, that's
Closer to 2,
that's
yeah.
a little long. But when I was sitting there, and I was trying to cut this down to get it as short as possible. And
I took some of that in
this-
consideration
and,
when I'd set up everything for the trailer, when I did all the pre-productions for the trailer.
Well, that's
and
one of the
everything
reasons
like
we
that.
have 2 hours.
Right. That's I
We-
set it up that way to where we could have more footage, to where if we wanted a shorter trailer, we could do a shorter trailer.
Yeah, we ended up shooting 6 full scenes.
Yeah.
6 full scenes from the script.
And I think the
which
shortest
is-
one was. I think the shortest scene that we did was
Probably Roz's.
The kitchen. was
the
actually-
kitchen. No, it was the kitchen. It was
Kitchen?
the
The
shortest
kitchen.
one. It
Yep.
was the shortest scene out of
Yep.
all 6.
Yeah, the longest was the club.
Yeah,
Right.
That
the
was-
longest.
But that's in the front of the club, in the club, behind the club. There was a lot
Hey,
involved.
if we
in
have
that
one more
club.
6 in this movie, it took us 6 months to
Yeah.
do the trailer. It's got 6 scenes, so. But
It's-
yeah, I mean, I intended on being a longer trailer than most
Right.
trailers, so it grabs the interest of what we've been talking
Yeah.
about, the financiers for this. Now it's just a promotional trailer.
Right.
The theatrical trailer will be, something a lot shorter.
That'll be, and
Right,
it'll be a
but-
completely
Yeah.
different thing.
Yeah.
Completely
Absolutely.
different because it's because you don't create that trailer until you shoot the
Shoot the
movie.
movie, right.
Right, but this I had so much fun trying to put this trailer together, because I sit there and I was like, where can I cut? What can I do? and I was actually
I've had
just
fun doing the trailer.
yeah. I've actually put in, I spent 6 hours just watching the footage.
Yeah.
Then I spent another 4 hours actually cutting that down to something that what you two have been about the only two people that have seen so far, to see how you guys felt about it, see if we can actually finalize that and get it polished up. But it's I love the trailer. I love doing the films, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of it. But in the meantime, I still have to make a living.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of people are going to look at us and say, why the split? Why not just do what we've been continuing to do? And it's because...
Well, it really comes down to the workload.
It does. Now you're working.
Mm-hmm.
After 3 months of being injured,
You're
I'm back
to
to work. And on top of being back to work, I've recently moved.
And we want to do SAG on Nature the Beast.
Yeah, and
which
we
is
want to do SAG.
as-
And right, so there's not a whole bunch of time with us both working and everything like that, with a whole lot of time for us to be able to take off and go and do these things.
We can't be salesmen.
Mm-mm.
We can't be cameramen. We have to be producers.
And we
Not
have
directors.
to...
And you two excel in that, in regard. I love running the camera. I like doing the editing, and I know how to talk to the business people and the corporate people. And one of the reasons that we've been bantering around doing the split for a while, the thing that really just was the kick in the pants that did it was I was a lady that I spoke to on 6 different occasions about doing a corporate video for her business, and I talked to her at length several times, and then at one of the networking events, you were there with me.
Mm-hmm.
You talked to her for 30 seconds. And 3 months later, she says, well, I need someone to do some corporate video. And someone mentioned my name. She's like, well, doesn't he work for Rising Fire? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, well, they don't do corporate video. They only do film. I was like, okay, this isn't going to work.
And that's because I told her I made a film.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, so 30 seconds of I made a film, I'm working on 2 features, completely erased
All of the corporate work.
all the corporate work,
yeah.
and everything. Because I never mentioned film when I was talking to her. Never mentioned it. But 30 seconds with you just erased everything I said. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to work.
And that was, I mean, anybody that's gone to our website already knows. You go to our website, that's an artist's site.
Yeah.
There's no corporate commercial presence to it. Now,
I mean, everything
do we
down
have-
to our business cards.
I was going to say, do we have the corporate work? Yes.
Yeah,
we
we've
have.
done-
We've shown it to plenty of people. They've been impressed, and we've gotten a couple jobs out of it. But ultimately, it comes down to time. Like I said, we
Time and
cannot be
dedication.
out there
Right.
being business salespeople, drumming up business for ourselves, while also dealing with SAG, dealing with actors, breaking down a script, building a budget, trying to figure out a production team. All of these things, I mean, every little thing we mention is a career of its own. And there's only the 2 of us to do it, and then we dump all of the post-production on him. And that just becomes unwieldy. So,
I mean, there was a point before Kent started New Sun, that we had taken a break. It was shortly after Cold Blooded, and it was shortly after the film festivals and everything like that we had been invited to. And I mean, last year, the whole month of October and part of November, we were all 3
business this, business that.
movies this, movie that. And then on top of that, we had jumped into a thing with one of the schools in DeSoto County where we were doing football games every Friday night.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, and we were having to travel for some of those football games. And
And this poor man was having to edit and have
Yeah.
them up the next morning for
so
cable.
there was a lot of things that had taken us away from some of the stuff that
It
you
really,
and I
it
were
really
wanting
did
to do.
pull us away.
And we have to have time. Some points we have to have time. I mean, last year during October, November, I saw my family for 2 hours a day.
I was going to say, I think
We-
there were times where you actually didn't even see
Yeah.
your youngest son for a period of like a week or so,
Yeah,
just because of his sleep.
I remember that one day you said, you know what, I am not doing anything today. I need to spend some time with Elijah.
Yeah, and it's just it took a lot of our time because we were doing the networking events. We were going to other film things like the film festivals. and-
Everywhere we went as a unified front,
Right.
all three of us. And it was effective. And it definitely got us noticed, both commercial and with the artist community. But where we stand now, he's at a point where the movie side of things, for him,
Is
at
at a
least with
standstill.
us, is at a standstill or
Right.
is a waiting game until we have our final edit, we have our notes, and he's ready to go with that. In the meantime, in addition to making money, he wants to be working.
Right.
There are other filmmakers he can work with. They're not filming. We have corporate clients that we've communicated with. He has corporate clients that he's already established relationships with. Why shouldn't he take his time and pursue that instead of sitting idly?
And we've said it.
I'm
we've,
a workaholic. I'll just leave it
well,
at
we
that. I am
all,
a
I mean, for
workaholic.
us to do what we do, all of us working regular jobs, I have a family, you have a wife, and other things outside of what we do.
And don't forget my very needy cat.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that we have going outside of the film community that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and we have to have the downtime to where we can be those people. That I can be the father, you can be the husband, I can be the father and the husband.
And honestly, I don't want to give away names at this time, but with the work you're doing on nature, you've got three very important people that are attached to this production that are outside of our city limits. That's a lot of time that you have to spend, and I have to spend, on emails, on Facebook, on phone calls, text messaging, back and forth.
I think
with
the
these
only
people.
thing that kept me sane those 3 months that I was off due to my shoulder injury was contacting these people, talking to the people, doing emails, sending out, portions of scripts and, constant communication back and forth with these people. I mean, for this film, the work that you've done with it,
It's
8 hours, 8 hours a day.
8
I'm
hours
gonna
a day is
say
nothing.
I'm very, very impressed. You two are not you don't fit the corporate client model, but when it comes to running a movie as a business, I've worked with a lot of people in town, and none of them have put the amount of work into a pre-production and getting ready to shoot a film as both of you two have. When it comes to the business side as far as film, you guys knock it out of the park.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons.
My mindset is more corporate. Your guys is more creative, but you're managing business at the same
But yeah,
time.
it's the same principle. You have to organize and manage a group of people and move them towards a singular goal. You are basically a manager. That's what a director is a manager. a guided manager, a vision, but...
Well, I mean, true enough. I've dealt with the corporate side. I deal with the corporate side every day. I mean, I work for one of the biggest electronic retailers in the world. I deal with the corporate aspects every day. I hate dealing with the corporate aspects of...
I'm employed by a
Yeah.
corporation, and thank God the kind of job I have removes me from all of it. I'm a courier. I sit in a car and I drive things around, and I don't have to deal with that
And
part of it.
That's
I
a good
love
job.
that.
That's a good job.
I love that because as a writer, as a producer, as a director, I'm in my head most of the time anyway. So that just gives me a chance to work out things while I'm driving around. But I can't do that and then think, okay, what client can I call up and get us a job so that we can pay our rent next week? I'm too busy working on where's money coming from for a film. Where's money coming from for that actor or that actress? Do we have this piece of paperwork from that actor or that actress? And you're doing the same thing, including calling and reaching out to more actors and actresses to try and get interest.
there was at one point we were, as Rising Fire, even you and I do this every week. We sit down there's one day a week that we sit down. We talk about things that, basically film-wise, where we're at on things, how we're getting this done, who we need to get this done, putting together this essential crew for this movie, putting everything in, the budgeting, the schedule, and everything like that. before we even started doing this, I came to both of you one night just out of the blue and said, something's got to give. We've got to stop somewhere because this is taking so much out of us. I think it was when we were doing Grimjack. You know, we were doing Grimjack, plus we were getting ready for the premiere in Tupelo, which that, you know, just the premiere in Tupelo took us, just to organize it, took me, you and Todd.
Couple weeks.
You know, it was a month and it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
You know, for a 5 hour, hour deal.
But I do think that the pre-production that we put together, and you know, I thank you for the compliment, but you have been a part of that.
Oh yeah, you guys have meetings for 8 hours. I come in, sit there for 15 minutes. You guys film me, and I leave.
But
I go back to my computer to edit.
Having that pre-production or that preset time, I think is the reason that we get so many compliments from actors that are able to come to our set, arrive at our set, within half an hour they're on camera, they do their scene, they're done, and they're gone. And they love the way, you know, Cold-Blooded, The Bag, The Nature of the Beast, the Grimjack even. Everything we've done. We've had at least 1 or 2 people comment, this is the most professional set. This is the most efficient set. Wow, I've never been on a set that's run like this. Wow, you guys must really do your homework because this is moving along.
And we do. All of us do. I mean, I spend
the last day
hours.
of Nature of the Beast that we shot was 5-6 hours of work on paper, and we were done in 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite scenes to actually edit.
That was
Believe it
probably
or-
one of
believe
the
it or
most
not,
efficient shoots
it
we've ever
was-
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, out of all of them, it was one of my favorites as well.
But
We
we had
had
a
a-
great group
We had
of
a great-
people
yeah,
for
we
that.
had
Don
Don
Myers,
Myers.
Keith Goff, Willie Adams, Alex Mazar, Greg Gray, the
David
three of us,
Tankersley.
David
Tankersley,
Tankersley,
yeah.
Tankersley.
and of course
Willie's
Willie's
grandma.
grandmother being willing to get inside of the body bag for us. Teaser. Spoiler, I guess. But that group of people all had one desire: do this and do it right.
Yeah, and it's looked and sounded great. Everyone did a fantastic job. I sat there and I just watched that scene over and over and over again while I was editing because it's so smooth. Everyone is just on point.
It
and
really
you guys even threw
was.
me on camera for that one because
That's
Yeah,
right.
we had a
I had
John
to be-
Dylan Atkins had a
well, John
last
Dylan
minute-
Atkins had a last minute thing, and
And then
Tarek
Tarek
Collins had fell at
hurt
work
his
and
leg.
hurt his leg, and
Yeah.
we had to put Alex in at about a 2 hour notice.
Yeah,
So-
I think we gave you 2 hours.
Yeah, I
notice.
gave you 2 hours notice.
I didn't
If
get,
we
I
were
didn't get-
nice.
I didn't get that much. It was,
No,
it
I
was
told
like- it
you
was
when you were on set.
You were on camera.
You're like, go put a shirt and tie on. You're corner's assistant now. Okay.
So you do it all now. You've been in front of the camera, behind the camera.
I've done a cameo in a lot of
A couple
of-
things.
a
Well,
couple things.
Pale Horse, which has not yet been released,
Yeah,
but you
I
have
was-
a
yeah, I
scene
was-
in Pale Horse.
Yeah, that
You'll
was,
probably
that
have
was
something
fun.
in Nature of the Beast again too. So
Well, you know, because when we did the music video for Leela, you know, there was a shot. I sat there and I was like, all right,
Forgot about that.
I was like, we needed people filling the tables, so I started the camera rolling and I went and sat down at one of the tables and did that, and you know, it's just every now and then it's just like, oh hey, there's the camera guy. What's he doing in front of the camera?
Well, it
It's fun.
is very rare that you're on this side.
It is.
But we wanted to take this opportunity to let people know that Rising Fire still stands, but out of necessity and just desire to some degree, you are stepping away as a partner to form New Sun Media Solutions, and you are pursuing exclusively the corporate, commercial, and event work.
Right.
And you will
There-
continue to work, like I said, with us and other filmmakers in town.
Right. There is one project that I'm working on that through New Sun, which is not really a creative, it's not a narrative, but it's about Memphis, and it's something that I'm working on that is going to be distributed through RFP TV, like in
Right.
Frame. But that's a project that I've been planning for years.
I was going to say, you started shooting on that
like 3 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
and
long time ago.
it was a great idea. It was just
I
never quite found the right way to get it out there.
Right. It was. I was working, 40 hours a week at that point. And, I've cut back. I'm only working part time now, so I have a little more time to actually put into that, as well as the corporate work. So I'm gonna try and
again,
get that
stepping
going.
away from a partnership status gives you the opportunity to pursue not only that corporate and commercial, but your own sense of creativity, which is something both Jamie and I want from the people we work with. Is we want them to pursue and have the opportunity to be all they can be and become the best they can be, because that's what we want around us and that's what we want to work with.
Yeah.
So on that note, I'd like to go ahead and take a look at a recent piece of work you've done for Dan Baker. And I am not going to bastardize the title. I'm going to let you go ahead and set it up and explain it, and then we'll cut away.
I don't even know if I can say it, but Dan Baker called me and said, hey, I want to shoot a video to celebrate Indonesia's independence. And I was like, okay. It wasn't a question of, it was like, okay, I want to shoot it. Here's the days I'm available. I gave him a list of 4 days, because there were the only 4 days I had available all month long.
Yeah.
And he said, he got back to me, he said, can we shoot this day? I said, sure. So we went out to Bill Street with a durian, which is a fruit from Indonesia.
Okay.
Oh,
and
gosh.
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, this video has had over 25,000 views since it was put online on the 17th of August. And has recently been posted on the front page of the largest Indonesian website.
Wow.
So, and it's the
Well done,
comments on
Dan
it are-
Baker.
Yeah. So this is I cannot say this. I'm just gonna say Merdeka!
With that, Dan Baker.
PAPA, Dan from Timid Monster here, and today we are taking a break from our usual sci-fi shenanigans to talk about something that's very near and dear to our hearts, the amazing country of Indonesia. August 17th is Indonesia's Independence Day. It marks today in 1945 when the Indonesian people stood up and threw off centuries of foreign and Dutch rule. To celebrate, we're taking to the streets of Memphis, Tennessee to test people's knowledge of the world's fourth most populous country. And we're also going to be sampling one of the region's most infamous delicacies, the durian. Let's go. All right, we have our first durian victims. All right, guys, so dig into that. Get yourself a big handful of it. It's very soft and kind of bushy. Yeah, get in there, get some.
That's good enough.
Yeah, whoops. All right, get you some. We'll do it on 3, okay?
Oh man.
Oh no, get a bigger. Come on, man.
Oh man.
Now that's the seed. You don't want to bite the seed. Now this is good for, man and wife, if you know what I mean.
Okay, okay.
So I want you guys to dig in and get a big old piece.
It's not, okay.
It's fruit.
I want
Get
this.
fruit.
I want this part.
All right, grab that part. Guys, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh! Oh!
All
All right, 1, 2, 3. What's that taste like?
I don't know how I feel about this. Thank you.
Come on, Brian. What does that taste like? What do you think?
I don't know. Mango a little bit.
Not bad. Oh, okay.
Kind of sweet.
You want some more?
No.
Oh, no, straight.
No, thank you.
No, give it a shot. Come on, try it.
Taste it.
Stick it all in there. Stick it all in there. Oh, write it out. Write it out. What's it taste like?
Tastes like banana pudding.
Tastes like, I don't know the word, like onion and garlic.
Yeah.
No, it tastes like a bad banana mixed with mango.
Bad banana with
Yeah,
mango.
maybe a rotten mango. I don't know.
Rotten mango. So the good news here is you're ready for a night of wild passion. Now that you've had your durian. You've had your dose of aphrodisiac there. You ready? but not with me. I mean, in general. Okay, he's good. Okay, so we've got the mystery globe here with the country names blocked out. Now, Indonesia is the world's 4th most populous country. Do you think you can find it on here for me?
South America.
South America. Is Indonesia in South America? You think it's up there in Europe? Ask, is it on Africa? Please say no.
I'm
In there
thinking
somewhere?
it's right there.
Part of India, maybe?
Here somewhere?
You think he's thinking in here, maybe?
Yeah.
This whole big chunk?
Yeah.
It's this whole stretch right here.
Above Australia.
Right above Australia. The tip, that's Indonesia. It's the world's 4th most populous country. Isn't that incredible? Well, let me prepare you for your trip to Indonesia. Let me teach you some words, okay? Okay, so the first word is how they say hello over there. So the pronunciation is a little tricky. It's hello.
Hello.
And you have to say it like you're very happy to see somebody. Hello.
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 Hello. All right, so now we're gonna say thank you, and it's terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Terima, he's like a pro. Terima kasih, and that translates as receive love. Nice. All right, and the next one is aku mau
No, you didn't say what it means.
Aku mau
I don't know what that means. I'm not gonna say
It doesn't matter what it means. It doesn't
What
matter.
is it? Aku what?
It means aku mau
Aku mau
Very good.
Aku mau
Aku mau
Aku mau
And you have to say it like you're happy. Aku mau
Aku mau
That means I need to go poo-poo. Okay, and so the last word is how they say freedom over there. And they say it very exciting because they're very happy about their freedom. They say merdeka.
Merdeka.
All right, so say it real big like you mean it. Merdeka.
Merdeka.
Mean it. Merdeka.
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 All right, real big.
Merdeka.
Merdeka. Yay.
Merdeka.
Merdeka. Close enough. Selamat Hari Kemerdekaan Indonesia. Indonesia is a beautiful country and it is filled with the most kind, generous, wonderful people, the best I've ever met in my entire life. Please spread the love about this amazing place by sharing this video with your friends. And if you want to know a little bit more about Timid Monster, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. All of our information and contact is down below in the description. Thanks for watching. Terima kasih. Tada!
At this time, we'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Willy Bearden, a local Memphis talent and filmmaker for the last 37, 38 years.
Yeah. Wow. Makes me sound old.
So we were talking before the show. You said you started as a film.
Yeah. Well,
Color?
I started off as a doing color correction on films, and I worked at Motion Picture Laboratory here in Memphis. And if you go back, 15, 20 years and on back, most of the people who are in the business around here came through MPL, Motion Picture Lab. They were a 16 millimeter lab, and they did work, all over the country. And we did a lot of sports films, we did religious films, we did dramas, we did every kind of film you can imagine. And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth. I started doing color correction there, and I did that for a couple of years, and then I was a film editor. And then later I was an account exec, and I traveled around the country for them, and I worked with filmmakers all over the country. And I think that's what kind of catapulted me into my own business. I would be, say, in Pittsburgh or somewhere on a trip, and I had about 20 states I traveled. I'd be in Pittsburgh, and I'd go on location with somebody, and they might be shooting a motivational talk, or something for a big insurance company, or just big shoots, small shoots, whatever. But I'd be on location with these people, and after doing this for several years, I'd be on location, and I'd think, oh, I don't think I'd put the camera there, or I don't think I would light it that way, or that wasn't a good take. And I really started getting this idea that, well, maybe I'm sharpening, my skills here just by working with so many directors and seeing what people are doing. And I think that gave me the confidence to start my own company.
Well,
I did that in '88.
I think it's important to work with as many people as you can, because you can never know everything. We're always learning, no matter whether it's the writing process, the directing process, the
You learn
acting
so many
process.
different things from different people. I mean, especially in this industry, you don't know everything.
You can't.
You
There's-
can't.
There's
you-
too
I mean,
many factors.
Yeah, there's
and the
there's too
minute
many-
you know everything, you're on another project where none of that applies now.
That's right.
And it has a whole new animal with a whole new, beastly pile of problems.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate in that I did get to work with a lot of different filmmakers, and I would follow those projects because they would use us to do the processing, and then we'd make the work print for them. I would many times go in and help people actually conform the things. I would help them cut. We sit down an 8-plate Steenbeck, and with 4 rolls of film, and so it was a great experience for me, a great education for me, learning how to do those things. And then by the time I started my own company, we were just getting into the video times,
Right.
and shooting Betacam.
I was going to mention that a lot of the people doing film now have no idea what you just said when you said sitting at the plate, the 8-plate.
Yeah.
We all have computers, and we can do all our cutting on a computer. And
Sure.
again, right before the show, you were telling me just to do a simple crossfade.
Oh yeah.
And let's say you want a crossfade with titles, you're looking at 3-4 layers
That's
of
right.
film.
Yeah, 3 rolls of film, and all that has to be in absolute sync. And I mean, it has to be in mechanical sync, not just we're in sync. It has to be in mechanical sync with like an 8-gang synchronizer.
Right, and
there.
you've got the teeth that
Absolutely, and
lock it
so
beat.
you are in sync at that point, and it was just technically it was a huge thing, and I think kind of what I really saw back then is that you had a lot of technicians, but not a lot of artists, so you had people who had these thoughts that, hey, I want to make films and things, but they just maybe weren't technically minded.
Right.
And it was very, very expensive. I mean, back in the early to mid 80s, to do a 10-minute short, probably minimum $20,000. I mean, $20,000 in those dollars back then. Just an incredible amount of money. So, learning all that really helped me, but I always thought that we were all hamstrung by the technology.
Right.
And once I saw nonlinear coming in, and once we started editing like that, it was just like, okay, we can leave all this hard stuff behind, and now we can come in and start really being creative in these things. You can try so many things. Even the early days of video, you'd cut a shot in, and that shot was there to stay, unless you went back and tried to put something over it,
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a pain to try to do these things.
It was the school of hard knocks. I mean,
Yeah.
Coming from something I've never had to experience, having to do something like that. I mean, I'm the digital filmmaker where you can offload onto a computer right there where you're at and start editing right then.
Exactly.
I did some 8mm editing just to learn it when I was in grade school. But I'm with Jamie, and even then I'm not technically minded. I'm actually one of those people you were talking about before the show where I need to learn more. I need to know the lenses, and I need to know these different technical pieces of information more than I do.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things where technology has just kind of kept charging ahead, and people kept thinking, what if we didn't have to do this? What if we didn't have to take 10 steps to get this done? What if we only had to take 2 steps? And the first digital video I ever saw, the early 90s, they were doing the first QuickTime stuff, and it was the size of a postage stamp and looked terrible. But when I saw that, I thought, okay,
Here it comes.
game changer right here. Started getting bigger.
You
Things
said when you was working on that same project, what didn't you say the largest storage device was 1 gig?
Oh yeah.
And that cost how
absolutely.
much?
Yeah. Well, the 1 gig drives were probably $3,000 or $4,000. My first system that I bought an Avid Media Composer. This was in either 93 or 94, and I paid $85,000 for that.
And what was the storage space on that?
The storage space they were selling 9 gigabyte drives for $5,000 a piece. 9 gigabytes.
How
for
many
$5,000.
gigs was one came home?
Huh? Oh God, it was. Oh, I don't know. We filled up. It was probably 3 terabytes. You know.
Just imagine the cost just
Oh,
in
yeah.
storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course back then you were dealing with SCSI drives, which are very very temperamental, and you'd get these media underruns, and I mean, it was very hard to do things back then, and things have just gotten so simple. I mean, I cut most of One Came Home with the small red camera proxy files, the smallest proxy files. I just had it, on a drive with my laptop. You just, take it anywhere and edit.
Now that ease, and the ease of making a film on the front end, has made it possible for a ton of people to
Yeah.
get out there and start making films, which
Yeah.
has also, unfortunately, meant we have to wade through tons and tons of garbage
Sure.
to find anything worthwhile.
Yeah.
When you decided to do One Came Home, you had already done years and years of work,
Yeah.
a lot of documentary work.
Yep.
Had you already done narrative story at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I've done some just short films, and I've done a lot of corporate pieces that were like narrative pieces. You'd go in and write a script, and it might be a 20-minute training film, but it's like shooting a movie. I mean, you got people.
You still have the same
moving-
premise.
Yeah,
You still have to do the
Yeah,
pre-production.
exactly.
You have to get the people in place, and
right.
it's-
You rehearse, and you bring a big crew out, and you shoot these things.
I first met you, I think it was 2002, 2003, right around
Right.
that era through David. And you handed me the Elmwood Reflections of Memphis,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
which I believe they have a copy here. Playing for a Piece of the Door, a history of Memphis garage bands,
Yeah.
which I've been told if you have copy of this, they would love to have a copy
Oh,
here at
really?
Lodge.
Yeah, I'll bring you. Yeah, absolutely.
and-
I'll bring you everything I got.
I was going to say, and I would ask that you bring anything you have because they need
Sure.
more independent work
Yeah.
here. Of course, the project that I worked with you on, sort of, was Project 366.
Yeah, right.
Where I was one of the photographers
Right.
involved, which is
Yeah.
again a narrative or a
It was-
documentary of.
Yeah, I wanted to do a film
Memphis.
without words, and we did that.
And
you know,
it's
yeah.
very watchable.
Yeah, to me I can't not watch it. If it comes on TV, I just have to look away and change the channel, because if I start watching it, I'm going to watch the entire thing.
And then of course, One Came Home.
One Came Home, which
they
was,
do
which
have
was
here
our,
as well.
our film here. Yeah, I'll bring the rest. I have Overton Park, and I have The View from Adams Avenue, which is the Victorian Village, the 19th century Memphis. I'll bring all those.
So, years of essentially documentary corporate work, all the pre-production. I mean, the business side is essentially the
Yeah,
same.
it's all the same.
You had a good friendship and outlet on PBS, the local
Yes,
PBS, for
right,
a
they've
lot of
been
your work.
Very kind to me. They've shown everything I've ever taken to them.
What made you decide now was the time to do a feature narrative?
Well, I jokingly say that when I was doing documentary work, I would sit there and I'd be talking to somebody. You obviously get all the smart guys together, the PhDs, the people who really know, the historians, people who really know what they're talking about. And I would be sitting there sometime and thinking, okay, I've already got 15 hours of interviews, and I have another 1,000 stills, and I have, probably 3 or 4 hours of B-roll, and I've got to condense all this down into a PBS hour, which ain't an hour, it's 56 minutes and 45 seconds. And sometimes I would be sitting there and thinking, God, I wish I could just tell you what to say. I know what I need you to say, but I know that's against the rules in documentary filmmaking. You
Right.
don't, I
Right.
can't script this.
Right.
And then I just started thinking, I had some stories that I want to tell. I've always been a storyteller, and I just had some things that I wanted to say that you can't say in a documentary film. And I kind of thought, because I had almost done like a documentary every year for a long time, for 10 or 12 years, and I was getting a little tired of that. I wanted to say something. I wanted to do something different. And this story was a true story from my family, from my mother's family, and a few years before, my mother had started reminiscing about the time right around the end of World War II when her brother was killed in Holland in 1945, literally 6 weeks before the end of the war in Europe. So we were talking about that, and I thought, you know, this would make a great film. Now, you know, you take the true part of the story up to here, and then you fictionalize it. You know,
Right.
so I had some ideas about how to fictionalize it. So David and I, David Tankersley, my writing partner and producing partner, we had been writing together for a while. We had written one other screenplay and another treatment by this time. We've written, I guess, 4 screenplays now, 5. We're working on 5. But so I told him the story, and he was going, man, this is a great story. We can make this. You know, we started thinking, you know, how can we make this? It's a period piece, very hard thing to try to do, but everything just kind of fell into place. You know, with period pieces, you know, your costuming has to be correct. You know,
I mean, even your backgrounds.
Oh God, yeah.
It's got to be hard. I mean, you know, with the vehicles and everything and the costuming,
Telephone poles.
Yeah, telephone
Yeah.
poles and everything that you
Airplanes,
had in
everything.
the film.
Yeah.
I mean, that you know,
Everything. Yeah.
with this way that you made it sound of an ease to kind of do, and for the budget that you had and so forth. I mean, it was a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, thank you, and you know, but we, like I say, we did our pre-production work, and we knew where we were going to shoot, and we did enough, you know, table reads and rehearsals to where we didn't have a lot of problem. We were pretty lean and mean, you know, when we were actually in production, and but you know, it just all worked out, and I just had this feeling that, you know, that we were going to be able to pull it off, for one thing. And then, I kind of come from the Clint Eastwood school of actual production. I want to get out there and get a good clean take, and I want to get a safety, and I want to move on. You know, I'm not going to, you know, we never took 8 takes or 10 takes
Well, you
or
shouldn't
20
have
takes.
to.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to. People should know what they're doing, you know. Sometimes if you have a better idea, or you're going to move the camera, you know, then yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're Stanley Kubrick, you can be out there for
Yeah,
64
of course.
takes.
Yeah, and you know, and you got millions of dollars. We didn't have that. We didn't have the luxury of any of that. So you know, we had to have our process down.
You actually
out
self-funded
and
this,
do-
didn't you?
Well, I did,
Essentially?
and I had a friend who helped us with that too, about half of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and but you know, still, I mean, we did this for about $80,000, and you say, well, that's nothing, but you know what? $80,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of money. You go out and ask somebody
Yeah.
to hand you $80,000, and you'll see how much money that is. You know, people are always saying, well, you know, I'm doing this film, and I think we're going to have about a, you know, $1.2 million budget, and I'm thinking you're never going to raise that money. Because, you know, you don't have a track record, and there's nobody out there, there's nobody around here who's got a pile of money like that to give you to do
Yeah.
that. So,
Well, and unless you're looking out of this city, as you said earlier,
yeah,
we have talent in town. We have a lot of undeveloped talent.
Sure.
But it's a very difficult thing to find someone in this town that can draw that kind of money.
oh, yeah. I mean, I don't...
You'd have to bring people from outside of this town to be able
Yeah.
to draw that kind of money.
Let's go ahead and take
Yeah.
a break right here and look at the trailer for One Came Home.
In 1946, John Mazzilli came to Magnolia, Mississippi, and life would never be the same.
We don't get a lot of folks from New York down here.
I bet.
Oh, I am so glad to meet you.
I'm very glad to meet you, Mrs. Hodges.
He's from New York, right?
Yeah, just got in yesterday morning.
Did you ever get to see any Broadway shows, Mr. Mazzilli?
Where are the lights in this place?
Where they've always been.
Let me go check these clothes on this line before they stiffen up too much.
They're not gonna stiffen up, Maddie.
Oh, they stiffening up as we speak.
World War II had ended. To my grieving family, the natural order seemed as remote as the battlefields of Europe.
I get so lonely sometimes.
I cannot tell you how much it means to me to have you here.
There's something else. Murphy saved my life when we were over there.
What's it look like where he's buried?
Oh, it's beautiful.
With his visit, he brought the promise of a new beginning.
Thank you for what you're doing.
You know it's been a blessing having you with us, John.
Mama's been in a lot of pain for a long time. I know your visit's gonna help her. I can see it already. And I know she'd appreciate it.
So it's a Methodist church. What are you?
I'm Catholic, but I'm not.
Oh my goodness, I don't think I've ever talked to one of those before. We don't have those here.
I am talking to you, Savannah. I think you're the kind of person that would love New York. I would love to hear you sing someday. Maybe you make it to Broadway, and I'll be right up there in the front row, Hope.
This is what I want.
Will you promise that right here tonight to all of us?
Yeah, sure.
In 1946, John Mazzilli came to Mississippi, and life would never be the same for me and my family.
He likes singing. He likes dancing. He likes life, Savannah. And I am not about to be stuck in this little town on this little farm like you and Mama Grace for the rest of my life.
Where did you go last night?
I don't know, Jefferson. I just needed some time alone, so I went walking.
Did you go walking alone? You all right? You okay?
I don't trust you. And I'm gonna find out about you, John Mazzilli.
Stay the hell away from home! I want you out of here. And I don't want Mom to know anything about this. She's been hurt enough already.
For this my son was dead and is alive again.
In the summer of 1946, John Mazzilli came to Magnolia, Mississippi. Sometimes, the truth we know today isn't the truth we'll know tomorrow.
All right, that was One Came Home, the trailer for Willy Bearden's feature film. That's 3 years old now, right?
Yeah, 3 years old, yeah.
Okay, now since then, I know you and David were writing a comedy.
Mm-hmm, yeah, we wrote a comedy.
I don't think I ever got the title of it from him, but...
it was called Just Working.
Just Working? Okay.
Yeah.
But apparently that won't be the thing you're working on next, from what you were
No,
saying.
we're working on another thing. We've written a couple of other screenplays, too, and it's just, you know, I think when you start thinking about trying to mount a film, you know, trying to pull everything together to do this, you want to do something that you feel like you have your best shot of making some money. And, you know, a lot of what we know as distribution or whatever, you know, is just who will show your film, how, you know, who will pay money to see that film. Now, if you've got, we have a good relationship with the folks at Malco. They've been great to us. They showed One Came Home. We did really well here in Memphis with that. We showed where we showed for 3 weeks at the studio on the square and had really good crowds in there all the time. People loved it. You know, the word of mouth was very good. And I knew we were going to do well for the first week because of, you know, I know a lot of people, the people on the cast,
the people that you
cast
know.
and crew, you know.
Right.
But then the second week, I thought, okay, we're kind of getting out there. And then the third week, I knew we were really getting good word of mouth. It had gone beyond us, which was really good.
That's a great feeling.
And then we did 6 cities in Mississippi, just special nights down there. So, you know, we made a little money. We sold a lot of DVDs. But still, you have to put together a business model to where you can get that money back. And whether you're trying to do a film for $300,000 or $500,000 or whatever, or, you know, $50,000, you have to have a business model to where it's possible to get that
your
money
investors
back.
Your investors are going to want to see some kind of a return.
Exactly.
They're going to want to see,
Yeah.
hey, how am I going to make the money that I invest into your film?
Exactly.
And the only way to approach it is to approach it as a business aspect.
And that's something we've been talking about. I mean, we took August off, but at the tail end of June and July, we had a couple of conversations where we were trying to emphasize that as filmmakers on any level, you have to think of business. Because if you want, at any point in your career, you want to make a movie and you want to go to financiers, financiers don't care if it's a fun movie, a good movie, a horror movie, a drama. What they care about is the ROI.
Yeah.
what is their return on their investment? Because they are money people. They're not film people. They're not art people. They're not entertainment people. They're money.
Well, a lot of artists,
beyond that.
yeah, a lot of artists don't take that in consideration. We've said that a lot. You don't take it in consideration when you're trying to raise money to do something like this. They can't distinguish the difference between the art and the film, you know, the business side of the film.
Sure.
So a lot of films, in my opinion, a lot of films don't get made because a lot of people don't look at that.
There was a great quote. I can't remember the musician in question, but it applies just as much to the film industry. And he said, it was about the music business. He said, you have to remember that the music business, little m, capital B. And that is the same of the film business.
Sure.
It is art. It is fun to do. It's great to write these stories.
Right.
But that's all it is until you put that capital B in there and understand that that's where you have to start. Because if you have no business plan, no business model, no idea on what the return on investment's going to be, no one is going to hand
Unless
you a
you're
dollar.
going to self-fund it.
Unless you're self-funding.
Yeah,
and
sure,
and even when you self-fund, you want to make your money back.
Sure, you want to make your money back. I mean, and that's the thing, man. And I think in today's world, you just look, you think about, okay, how many DVDs can I sell? You know, can I hook people in, all my Facebook friends, all this stuff. So let's say I can sell, say, 3,000 DVDs at $20 a piece. DVD is going to cost you $1, right? So whatever, $3,000 times $19. So you say just 3,000, you know, times $20. Okay, then you've made some money there. Okay, how about getting in the theaters? You're generally, if you're doing all right in the theaters, you're going to do a 50-50 split with the theater company, right? So you say, okay, I'm going to probably make about $1,500 a week per screen. So what is the math that I have to get $200,000 back? How many screens do I need to get that money back?
Right.
And so, you know, it's just a numbers game. And I think when the money people look, they're very dispassionate about this. They don't care about the art of it or anything. But the people who are successful are the people who go in and say, can we put these multipliers together? How many downloads can you kind of guarantee me?
Right.
You know, how about, you know, some kind of international distribution? Have you talked to anybody, you know, who can sell in Central Europe? Have you talked to anybody who sells in Germany? Have you talked to anybody who sells in Spain? Can you cobble together, will those people in Spain give you $5,000 to show it on television? Will the people in Germany give you $8,000? You know, and you have to cobble together these little pieces of money, but that takes longer than your pre-production and your production and your post-production. Just putting that together. And that's the thing that people usually don't know how to do, don't have any connections to do, or they're so tired when they've made their film, they're not going to do it. And so I think that is really what, you know, as local filmmakers, what we have to overcome. Where do you put the film?
And
what do you do with it?
And I think we also, I mean, like you said about technology, it's changing as fast as you can think of it.
Yeah.
Distribution is completely up in the air. The old model of distribution is gone because of the internet.
Right.
But the festivals haven't let go of the old method.
Yeah.
You know, even Netflix, if you want your film on Netflix, you have to have an old model distribution deal to get to Netflix.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the same way with Redbox
Well,
as well.
You
have to have a
Redbox,
distribution
you have
as
to have
well.
a distribution
Sure.
deal in place.
Same thing, you know,
But-
if you want to get your film ready for iTunes, you're going to pay $2,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
you know, and usually
is-
at the end of production, you don't have $2,000.
But that is possibly changing. We're seeing musicians who are self-distributing now.
Yeah.
Radiohead a few years back, they leaked their own album. 2 weeks before the official record release of it, they let it go on their website. And they said, you know what, it's there, download it.
Yeah.
If you want to pay whatever you want to pay.
Right.
They ended up making more money that way than they did through their actual
Well, you know,
distribution deal, because the average distribution deal gives them something like 4 cents a disc.
Yeah.
A lot of bands have taken that model now. You know, a lot of them.
And
Dead
I
Letter
think
Circus,
filmmakers are gonna
Carnival, and stuff like that. They just released both of their brand new albums and did the same thing.
I think
And I
filmmakers
think
are going to follow that
yeah.
model in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I just think you have to do the numbers, and it's strictly a game of numbers. Does this make sense? You know, is it possible for me to make $300,000? Well, if it is, then yeah, then it may be possible to make your film. Is it possible for me to make 1.2 million? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, and so you can't do that.
And
you
even-
can't spend that money.
And even then, once you have your equation, you have to be able to sell that equation to your investors.
Oh, yeah.
They have to buy that you've done the research. They have to buy that those numbers are accurate.
Sure.
You want to make sure you've done everything accurate. Your homework needs to be complete, because
And
if they go in and research it and
Sure.
find one flaw, they walk away.
Sure. Well, and even if people want to help you, I mean, it's still a crapshoot.
Money people are notoriously impatient.
Yeah.
Even when they want to help you,
Sure.
you're talking a large sum of cash.
And a lot of
And
people,
there's in this business, there's no guarantee either.
There's
so
never
they're
a guarantee.
fishing for that. Exactly like what you said, Kane. You promised me, 300 DVDs in Spain or around the world and everything like that. And there again, your film is going to have to reach out to those people like that.
that's right.
You also have to know, if you have your film, like One Came Home, who is your audience?
Yeah.
Do you have an audience in Germany for that film?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. It's it's
Well,
a
and-
World War II era film. That's a weird question for
That's
Germany.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and
Even
and,
though it doesn't deal with the war.
It still
Exactly.
has those
It's that
underlying.
era. It's that underlying
Yeah, it's
tone.
still that underlying undertone. I guess you would say it's still there. So, even with the period piece, it's being a Southern period piece
Sure,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
It's going to be appetizing to the people here, here in the South, but
Yeah.
the people up north,
Now-
even in the States.
Now, if it was a film about Elvis, he
And-
could sell that in Germany. He can sell
Yeah.
that in Japan. He can sell that worldwide because it's Elvis. You have to know whether it's One Came Home, whether it's Nature of the Beast, whether it's something else.
Sure.
You have to know where you might have an audience to take. I mean, there's no point in doing research. Let's say One Came Home is a film that absolutely would not play in Germany. Why do the research for Germany?
Yeah.
You need to know where to do your research.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you said, that's something that
And if you can
most
get
of
on
us are
get on
not
TV,
educated.
get on TV. I mean, the question, comes in. You've got to, who are your stars? Well, if you've got to have known stars, Hollywood people, then how do you pay these people? What can you get somebody? Can you write? Can you write a role for somebody that you can bring in here for 4 days and pay them $10,000? I don't know. So I mean, you just have to look at so many things like that. And, I certainly haven't figured this out. I haven't figured it out. I mean, I know how to shoot. I know that we can come away with clean images, and I know that we can tell a compelling story. But beyond that, I don't know. You just can't tell.
Well, it's like you were saying, you have to go into it on the front end with your business model, your return on investment already in place. You have to know the kind of film you're making, the kind of people you need in it.
Right.
For instance, with Nature of the Beast, he really wants to reach out to Gunnar Hansen, who was the original Leatherface. We actually have sort of an in with that because he lived next to my grandfather for years. So we're gonna reach out for that.
Yeah.
But would we want to bring him in and put him, if this is a romantic comedy?
Yeah.
Why would we try to sell Gunnar Hansen to rom-com fans?
Sure. Yeah.
You wouldn't. You put him in a film that's dark or has a horror element.
Right.
So you really have to know the stars. You have to know the audience that you are looking for. You have to know the type of investors that might be inclined to go for that kind of film.
Yeah.
Because there are people out there that will throw a ton of money at a faith-based project. But you come to them with, like a Mike McCarthy project.
Yeah.
They're not going to really see the merit in that.
You just have, it's the business model. It's exactly what you said. It's a business model. You have to look at everything with wide open eyes.
Well, and that's the whole thing, and I think that's the one thing we really haven't put together in Memphis is that nobody has gotten distribution on a deal. Nobody has
Well,
gotten good distribution.
Daylight Fades
so-
got distribution.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's a wide distribution, but
Yeah.
they did get a distribution deal. And they're the first ones that I'm aware of around here that have a distribution deal of any kind over
Yeah.
the last few years.
Yeah. Well, actually, Jeremy, can't think of his last name now.
Jeremy Benson?
Yeah. They got a distribution
Oh,
deal
did he?
on, I forget the name of the film now, I'm sorry.
I do
should-
too.
Yeah.
Sorry,
animals.
Jeremy.
Some animal.
Live animals.
Live
animals,
animals,
yeah.
He got,
yeah.
he did
Yeah,
get distribution.
I forgot about that.
So I mean, there's some people, but nobody has knocked it out of the ballpark.
Right.
Nobody has walked away with a lot of money in their pockets, and that's kind of what you're looking at.
Even Craig.
You're looking to have a big enough hit on something to where you can fund the next movie. So you
Right.
don't have to go and
Exactly.
try to beg $300,000, and nobody's done that. You know, I don't know what it takes. I don't know what it takes. I'd like to be the guy who does that.
I was gonna say you'd
you
like to
know,
be the one
but
to
you know,
find out.
and we're gonna keep trying. I mean, you know, nobody ever guaranteed that you're gonna make a lot of money in this business, and that's just something that you know. I think everybody who lives the life as an artist understands that there are things you give up, but you know,
Absolutely.
hopefully you have more fun and you're more fulfilled. You know, in a week
Well,
than
if you're
most
getting
people
into
do
this,
in a year.
if you're getting into this business, become richer in the
You are,
wrong
yeah.
business.
Absolutely.
I certainly can't think of any other business or any other thing that I would be willing to sit down and spend 18 hours a day doing, which is what
yeah.
I do on the average with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you just do it. I mean, it's my life. I can't imagine doing anything else. You know, and I've been fortunate that I've been able to make a living and raise a family and do all these things by doing what I do. But I've had to learn to do a lot of things. You know, some days I'm a writer, some days I'm a director, some days, you know, I produce live shows around. I mean, you know, you have to learn how to do a lot of things if you're going to make a living.
And for you in particular, this might not apply just because for my impression of you, this was never really a problem for you. But in this industry, to do it well, you have to set aside ego. Your ego will be the first thing to get in your way at every step along the way, doing a project like a feature film or even a small film.
Right.
If you allow, and that's kind of what we were talking about off camera, about the writing process even, deciding before you start page one how long your script will be.
Right.
To me, inherently means you are removing the art from it.
Yeah.
And that you are reducing it to a formulaic, opportunistic tool.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, I think a lot of people go into this with a lot of hubris, you know, in the sense that they, you know, they'll make one pass at a script and try to shoot that. You know, I mean, Tankersley and I have both been paid to write for years. Okay, I've made a lot of money writing for people. And I go talk to groups and you know, I'll see a script that somebody's done and I'll ask people, I'll say, has anybody ever been paid anything to write anything? And nobody raises their hand. And so why would you think you could write one draft and you got it? You know, we did, I think, 12 drafts.
I was
of
just
that
about to
one
ask
came
how
home
many drafts.
and still had problems with it, you know?
And
I mean,
David's been a
this-
professional writer his whole life.
Absolutely. And so, you know, and we look at it now and go, oh man, you know, we kind of missed the boat here. But we did 12 drafts of that thing. I mean, we were very serious about it, you know? So, you know, to go in with anything other than, you know, just complete seriousness and
Focus.
and focus and leaving your ego at the door and all of those things is a recipe for disaster. And so many people do that, you know?
That's more than not, I guess, probably par for the course.
Sure. I mean, and that's where you see people who just have wasted their time and a lot of other people's time, and maybe not much money, but, you know, they just waste, you know, you got to have somewhere for the thing to be, but it has to be good enough for somebody to pay.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's the thing, we have to hold ourselves, you know, to these very lofty kind of goals, I think, you know, just to make sure that it can compete.
And
it's not a Memphis thing. It's
No,
not
it's-
a Memphis
it-
thing
it's-
at all.
it happens everywhere.
Yeah, but we're not competing against anybody here. Is we're competing against the people who are making films in the world.
Yeah, and
you
that's
know,
I think that's
we'll-
also a problem people have is they think in terms of here.
Yeah.
Where and that's fine.
And people start
but-
saying, "Well, so and so is the best filmmaker in Memphis." I'm thinking, what does that mean? What does that mean? Don't care. You know, I'm the best filmmaker in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. But you know what? I'm the only filmmaker there. So you can get as small as you want.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you start talking about the best here and the best there, who has made money? Who makes their livings doing this? I don't know a lot of people who do. So I think that's the goal as filmmakers. We try to put something together. You do something that is manageable with the money you can raise, and you do the best you possibly can. And if you make something for $50,000 and you make $40,000, then you know what? You've been successful. Haven't made your money back, but you've been successful, and you know a lot more than you did going into it. So the next one, and that's the thing about it. I think we could really have a film industry here. For years and years, we chased the Hollywood films. And that's because John Grisham was writing books about Memphis. And that's how our whole film industry got started. And then it sunk when we didn't have any more money to give people to come here. So all that's kind of out the door. We're not going to have a bunch of Hollywood films coming in here. What we can do is we can have people like all of us making films for $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and having a place, having a pipeline to put those in that continue to make money for us. Because the one thing that I always saw is when these Hollywood films came in here, none of the money stayed here.
I was going to say, it
I
all
mean,
left.
production assistants, drivers, somebody's an assistant costumer or something. So yeah, they drop some money at the Holiday Inn and the Peabody and places like that, but the money doesn't really
$4,000 or
stay here.
$5,000 out of $20 million. Is
Exactly,
nothing.
exactly. And so it's not going into somebody's account here in Memphis. And that's what you want. If the film makes $1.2 million on a $400,000 spend, great. Then you've been really successful. Then people get better, crew people get better. You get people who understand things. You get better rental houses, and so there's more equipment around and all that. Because, like we were talking earlier, the technology is there. I mean, we shot, one came home with a Red One camera.
Right.
Beautiful. We used all Zeiss Super Speed Prime lenses. It was exactly, I said, no excuses, guys. We're gonna be able to spend $75,000 or $80,000, but no excuses to what it looks like on that screen, because it should look as good as any Hollywood film. With the same camera, same lenses. So there's no reason it shouldn't look great. And so we tried to make a film with no excuses, and I think we succeeded in that. 20 years ago, you couldn't do that. You couldn't bring a Panavision camera in here because you couldn't afford it.
Right.
You couldn't afford those lenses. Now you can do this. So you can rent a Red for 10 grand for a month, or probably less now. There are a lot of those cameras around, and good gear and good audio, all the things that typically trip up filmmakers. Those things can be off the table because you can do those things the right way with the technology that's out there.
I think the minute you start thinking of it as a business, you are forced to think of the production quality.
Sure.
And the number one thing is always sound.
Yep.
It might be a visual medium, and I've said this 1,000 times, but if you can't hear it, it does not matter how pretty it is.
That's right.
You have to be able to discern the sound.
Yeah.
So the first thing you have to do is make sure you have good sound.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen films that were done here, and just the ambience is totally wrong between shots, and you hear this, and you got one ambient feature here, and then they cut to you, and it sounds totally different. You can't do that.
Well, even Daylight Fades, which I mentioned earlier, got a distribution deal. They had to ADR 90% of that film.
Right.
Because of one reason or another.
Yeah.
And
it's a noisy world out there.
About 85% of the time, I could tell.
Yeah.
And that did kind of, it didn't completely pull me out because I was really trying to watch the film.
Right.
but it really did just constantly sit right there and go, hey, hey, sounds bad, sounds bad.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but know it.
Yeah. Well, and that's just one of those things, you know. I mean, you know, it is a very noisy world out there, and you don't realize that until you're out on the street shooting, and you got traffic noise, and you got FedEx planes going over, and you just have everything
We know.
in the world.
Very well.
We've gone through everything from Harleys to trucks to barges
Geese.
to geese to
Yeah.
planes.
Yeah, and it's a very tough thing to get it right, you know, just to get it right. So,
but it's important.
Oh,
I mean,
it's the most important thing.
ADR is a necessary function, but
Well, I'll say this: we didn't have to ADR anything when one came home, and I
it's
went in
because you
knowing
did your job.
I went in knowing that I didn't have the money for that.
Yeah.
So that will push you along, and so we would take things sometimes, and we'd have to stop for a plane or stop for, you know, cars or something like that, or dogs barking or weed eaters. We'd have to send a PA around and get somebody to stop, you know, with the weed eating or the lawnmower or whatever, or the blower, leaf blower or whatever. But, you know, I knew we had to get it right because I knew I didn't have the money to ADR all this stuff. And once you fall in that trap, you go, oh man, we'll just ADR that. Believe me, you're going down the rabbit hole at that point.
I was going to say, it gets deep quick when you do that.
Yeah.
Because you start AD, I mean, like you said, the ambient is all wrong.
Yeah.
Unless you really have a good sound tech.
Exactly, yeah. And most people don't know how to do it. I mean, and most actors that you would have in a local production, I'm sorry, they can't pull that up again, something they did 6 months ago.
I will mention, since he's your writing partner, if you ever have to ADR David, you are in for a treat. We did a film with him, Words of a Father, and he did at the final scene, there's a line where he actually is on camera speaking, and we filmed him speaking it.
Right.
It took us a year to get the edit to where we wanted it. At the end of that edit, we brought him over to do the voiceover because it's predominantly a voiceover film.
Right.
He got to the part where we already had him on camera speaking, and every inflection within a half a second was perfect.
That's great.
David was incredible.
That's wonderful.
So if you ever have to ADR
I
him,
could imagine he would be good at that. He's very steady as an actor. Yeah.
But ADR can be a necessary evil, but it shouldn't be your means of creating the sound of your film by any means.
Right.
We're going to go ahead and take another little cutaway. We'll be right back after this.
Davies is the oldest home in Shelby County, and it is being preserved and enhanced for the enjoyment of the visitors and members of the association. So they can see 1850s, mid-19th century farm life.
It's a haven and an educational facility for the children and the adults in our neighborhood and our traveling visitors. We have visitors from different states almost every day.
Davies Manor was built in the early 1800s and purchased shortly after the original building was built by the Davies family. They have owned and occupied it ever since. The last surviving Davies was Ellen Davies Rogers, who died in 1994, I believe. And before her death, she set up the Davies Manor Association to preserve the property.
She was a very, very sweet lady, very powerful lady. And I don't know if too many people can get a bridge put across the interstate or get an interstate actually moved to keep it from getting this close to her log house. But if you ever go from east to west down there, you'll see that the interstate actually curves away from this log house. That's because of her.
The items within the property came through her family, and we're showing the museum itself as a representation of how her family lived. You'll see all of the ancestors' pictures along the walls. During the tour, you'll find out all the good and the bad that they did over the years.
It's a surprise to people when they walk in. I think it's a little fancier than they expect it to be when they see the logs on the outside. And I'm very proud that we've been able to maintain the collection that Ellen left to us, and to be able to arrange it in a pleasing manner, and keep things preserved.
We've got a resource right here that is different than you're going to find anywhere else in Shelby County. And to preserve it and make it where people can walk through and experience what it was like is a lot different than reading it in a book.
And it's just a perfect place for school children to come and be amazed that people actually live like this. And I love when we take them upstairs and they pull back that curtain and there's your night jar. They're, what? Yeah, that's where you went to the bathroom at night. No, you didn't. Oh, I love that part of it there.
Well, it's important, particularly for our children and in the educational aspect, because it enables them to actually visualize what they're reading, what they're studying in school, that they can't really comprehend because life was so different then. It's just something that I wish there was a way we could get every Memphis and Shelby County school student, make it a part of their curriculum.
We have a lot of wildlife. People will spot deer up here all the time, and that is something that really a lot of them love to see.
The deer, I love the deer. And then me and them have a love-hate relationship when it comes to my garden.
One of my favorite things is just the approach to the house. When I walk down the long brick sidewalk, it almost takes me back. It's so quiet and so peaceful, and the traffic noise fades away and you hear the birds, and it's like a little haven, I think.
Well, our goals right now are to make the property self-sustaining, which we're trying to do that by enhancing our exhibits. We'd like to see that people use the facility, use the grounds. We don't want it to be a stagnant museum. We want to see it as something that people can come up and actually use and enjoy and come back.
Basically, what we're looking for is partnerships with the community, with businesses, and with organizations so we can continue to grow and give back to the community what we have to offer here at Davies.
All right, welcome back. We just took a look at the Davies Plantation, which is one of the locations you used for One Came Home.
Yeah.
Which, as I understand, you had to kind of call in some favors.
Well, yeah, I think when you're out there, kind of trying to do this on a shoestring, you have to call in every favor, and so I hopefully have done lots of favors for people over the years and loaned gear and stuff like that. So. When it came time to call in some favors, I didn't really, everybody I asked just said, of course.
I can't imagine anyone saying no to you. You're one of the most connected and certainly one of the friendliest people I've ever met.
Well, thank you. So. I appreciate that. And, and I love to help people, when they need some things that I might have. But yeah, we went out to Davies Manor, and it's the oldest home in Shelby County. And it's a museum, and we walked around there, and I thought, man, this is perfect. I took about 100 stills, I was going, God, this is perfect. And I was just seeing the story come alive in this space. And I thought, there's no way they'll ever let me shoot here, because it's a museum,
Right.
So after we toured around, the lady said, well, would you consider shooting your film here? And I said, yeah, I would. she said, I said, but I do want to explain this to you. I said, think about all your antiques and think about all the things that are so special to you, and understand that we're going to touch every one of those things a lot. You got all these signs around, do not touch. We're going to touch everything. We're going to move things around. And she said, really? I said, yep. I said, I just don't want you coming in here when we're shooting and got 25 people in your museum. She said, you're going to be careful, right? I said, I'm absolutely going to be careful. So I had to, of course, I had to get a big rider on my insurance policy, you know, which you have to do.
Right.
You know. So if something really does, you know, really bad happens. But we didn't break anything. You know, we put everything back. But, you know, sometimes we'd be in a room for 2 days, you know, and just have to move things, lay in dolly track and things like that.
Did it make you nervous being
Yeah,
there?
it did make me nervous. It sure did. And I kept telling the crew, you know, be very, very careful. You just don't lean up against stuff, you know. I mean, this vase over here is, you know, probably 120 years old. So, you know, just be very careful.
I'd be ripping my hair.
Yeah, and so... But it was the perfect location, you know, and I think it just photographed so beautifully.
It does. It looks amazing. The whole film looks amazing.
Thank you.
The
But yeah,
scenes,
in the house,
it really sets the era.
And you know, and using a film, using a camera like the red can pretty much see what your eye sees. And so, you know, you kind of walk in somewhere, and so you're not thinking about having to put so much light into a situation, because, you know, you might need to just kick a little light here, or, you know, do a key here, but pretty much it'll see what your eye can see. So that was very helpful to me. In fact, Steven Soderbergh, the great director, shoots with the red, and he doesn't use any lights. He only uses practicals. So, you know, he'll use table lamps and things like that, but does not use any lighting on his films.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's because it sees what your eye can see.
I know Lost Highway, David Lynch's Lost Highway, is shot with only existing whatever's in the room.
And you know, I mean, it's great because, you know, when you're trying to expose film or something, you have to have a lot of light. You know, you have to have a lot of light, but it doesn't need to look like it.
Even a lot of the HD cameras.
Oh yeah,
you still have to have a lot.
You still have to have
Yeah.
a ton of light to get them to
that is
respond
true.
right.
That is true. You know, but you know, you using good glass and using fast lenses. You know, if you're using lenses that are, you know, 1.5s or 2.0s or something like that, then that'll let a lot of light in. So you can get, and you know, of course, you know, in the way we shoot these days, everything is shallow depth of field. You know, you want somebody's eyes in, but their ears are going to be out, right? Yeah, and so, you know, that's what goes for art these days.
Yes.
And in 50 years, who knows what's going to go for art? Probably that light
Jiggling
field
camera.
stuff. Yeah, well, who knows?
Well,
you know.
that's already an art form as now.
I wouldn't
anyway,
say
so-
art form
Well,
necessarily.
some
right.
people think it is.
Yeah, monkey cams.
Yeah.
Who gave the camera to the monkey? Yeah. But
Now, with the experience of One Came Home,
yeah.
now you did mention that, you know, during production there was a lot of times where you just want to run away.
Yeah, sure.
Because it is a hairy experience.
Yeah.
But having gone through it, being on the other end of it now, is narrative storytelling where you're going to stay, or do you see returning to documentary?
No, I still do documentary stuff. I'm working on a couple of pieces right now, and have done several really in the last couple
Since
of
One
years.
Came Home?
Oh yeah.
So what would you say would be your favorite out of either the documentary or the narrative?
I think One Came Home is my favorite because it was the biggest challenge, and it was a personal story for us, and it was working with, it was so collaborative, you know, working with so many actors and so many people on the crew. Documentary filmmaking to me is a lonely process, and not in a bad way, but you know, mainly I'm out there shooting
it
I
has to
cut
be.
it, you know, I write it and all this. And usually I don't even use anybody else. When I go to do interviews, I don't take anybody with me. You know, I just set everything up and do it myself. Lots of times I can see that if I have somebody with me, my subject over there is kind of looking at that person sometimes. So, you know, I just like to be there by myself and have a conversation with somebody.
And the narrative film, of course,
The
much
narrative
more
film,
collaborative.
Yeah, much more collaborative, you know, and you know, and you get good ideas from people, and you know, you go in with a set of ideas, and then somebody says, well, why don't we put the camera here? Why don't we move the camera like this? And you know, you look at it and you think, yeah, I think that's better than my idea.
Right.
You know, and you know, so you know, just the collaborative process is good, and you have a lot of fun on set too, as you know. You know, you just have a lot of fun. You know, people have their personalities, and you know, a lot of joking around. You know, a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours, but it's all worth it.
And once it's said and done, and everything's finished, and you can have a little breathing room.
Yeah.
Then you know, you realize some of the friendships and some of the family that you have made during that whole process.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just you know, I mean, the people I worked with, I would work with 90% of them again. You know, anytime.
Right.
You know, and
would you do another period piece?
No, you know, period piece. I you know, I could, but that just took a difficult situation and put that much more difficulty on it. You know, it was very hard.
I think maybe your experience, the years of experience you have behind you, probably is one of the only reasons that you survived shooting a period piece. Because I can't imagine myself, my partner, any of the younger filmmakers now in this town, I can't imagine any of them taking on a period piece and getting it anywhere near right. And it's not because I don't think they're incapable, but like we said, planes, trains, trolleys, Harleys, trucks, geese, background material. I mean, if you're shooting a 1940s film and somebody drives by in their Jeep Safari,
that's right. Yeah.
You got to cut.
Absolutely.
And I don't think everybody in town is aware of the difficulty levels.
Yeah, it just
costuming,
did.
Even hairstyles need to be right.
Oh, we had hair people, we had makeup people. You know, makeup was completely different at the time. You know, I went in, I bought magazines and catalogs off eBay for 6 or 8 months
of the era.
Yeah, and I would just, you know, I got with my costumer and said, this is, you know, this is what I want. I want this. My wife had collected old patterns, dress patterns from the 40s, and my costumer made those from those patterns. And so it's just a whole level.
Like you said, it's another madness on top of the madness.
It is. It really is. I mean, most of the time when you shoot, you just tell people, you know, why don't you bring this, this, and this? Bring 3 changes of clothes, and bring this. Have you got a sweater? Have you got this? Have you got, you know? And so you do that, and that even gets difficult.
Right.
But when you're trying to dress people, you know, in period costume, it just, you know, everything has to be right. I didn't want any false moments.
Most of us as filmmakers are pretty much used to the, do you own this? Can you bring this?
Sure. Yeah.
Just dress in, you know, black suit, black tie, whatever the common is. And we don't think in terms of building a costume.
Yeah.
And by extrapolation, building a set, having a palette that your set design can work with. Yeah. And I don't know how much you really worked in One Came Home to get a palette as such.
Oh.
But your film
very
has
much top of mind. Yeah, I mean, none of that just happens on its own. I mean, you know, you thought about these things. We had to go. Of course, you have to break everything down with film days.
Yeah.
So you know, this is our whole film happened in a very short time. It was over the period of like 4 days. But you got to have different costumes for people, different wardrobe for every day. And then you're doing a party scene. Okay, well, then we got men there. We need 40s ties. We need, you know, you can't have button-down collars because they didn't wear button-down collars. You know, just all of these things. And I see Hollywood films sometimes that I think, oh, that's wrong. That is totally wrong. And that'll take me right out of the film.
Very quickly.
You know, just seeing something that's absolutely wrong.
I can't remember what I was watching recently, but they did a flashback moment to an era in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and something was in the background on one of their shelves, and I had owned that same item and knew that it didn't get, you know, it was released in stores in like 92, 93, and they're trying to tell me this was 85. And all I could think of was, that's not. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I realized I'm missing dialogue.
That's right. You're out
I'm
of
missing the
film.
scene because I'm going, hey, that's not right.
Yeah.
And it's the same
Yeah.
thing with a boom mic or, a
Any
bad
of that,
shot where you get a reflection in glass or glasses or a mirror or some sort of crystal device on.
Right.
And you see a cameraman or somebody like that. It pulls
There's
out
just-
immediately.
There's just so much, that, I mean, to do it right, there's just so much that you have to look at. And when you don't have somebody covering everything, I mean, we probably about a third to a half of the time, I didn't have a script supervisor there. And so I'm having to listen, because the only people who were on headphones were me and the sound man. And so
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else, it sounds fine to them. No, it's not fine
Yeah.
at all. So just all of that, and there's just so much that that I felt like I had to shoulder, because it was kind of my film. You got to make it work.
It's your baby.
Yeah, and so do you want to make it as perfect as you can? Yeah, and so it's just a very big thing. I hope with the new film we'll be shooting that we will have more people. And I don't want a whole lot more people, because that gets tough too, trying to steer
Becomes
that
unwieldy at that point.
oil tanker, through the Strait of Hormuz. It's like, God, all these people, because when it comes down to it, you're feeding people and you're keeping people happy. You got people who are maybe not as passionate as you on your crew, and so you got to keep them happy. Everybody wants a popsicle.
Gotta keep 'em
everybody,
interested, you gotta keep 'em-
everybody wants, if we're having, apples and bananas, everybody, if you're out of bananas, somebody's going to be mad. Everybody wants cookies, and a lot of what it comes down to is just keeping people happy.
So, if you could give just one essential piece of advice to a young up-and-coming filmmaker, whether that's make sure your script is right, or make sure you've got this, or make sure you've thought of your business, what would be that first most important, this is what I would tell them?
I think if you've got your story, make sure your script is right. Make sure that people sound like real people. That so many scripts I read, every character sounds like the same person, because it's been written by the same person.
Because it's been written by one voice.
And so, you have to, create, breathe some life into your characters, and then keep honing that script until it's the best it can be. Let lots of people read it and say, listen, I want you to read this script for me. It's going to take you probably an hour and a half, but make notes on it.
Take the criticism.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't, you listen to people and you think, well, no, I don't agree with that, but yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, we kept changing this thing. Every time somebody would read it, they go, what if so-and-so? How about this guy? Well, I don't like that, And you go, yeah, you're right. God, we're 10 drafts in and we're just thinking of that now, So I just think you have to be very hard on yourself when it comes to your story. You're not going to get the chance to tell that story the second time. You're going to get to tell it once.
That's the advice right there, is that you're not going to get the chance a second time. I like that. You have to have, you have to belabor your script.
Yes.
You can't just jot the idea down and call it filmable.
Yeah. And same thing, I was telling you earlier that somebody came to me before we shot, and they said, so Willie, are you going to tell the actors what to say? And I said, yeah, I'm going to tell them exactly what to say, word for word, and I'm probably going to tell them how to say it, because that's what a director does. And this person looked at me and said, well, kind of the thing now is just to give people an idea and let them kind of ad-lib. And I said, you know what, I don't know anybody on my cast or crew who's a better writer than I am. If somebody is, I'll take their ideas, but I don't think they are. And I don't know of anybody who can sit there and just riff on something better than what it's taken us months and months to write.
Yeah, especially with it being maybe they can do a scene. Sure. A lot of good, strong actors can give us an improv scene.
Yeah.
But to improv an entire film, or what do they call it? Mumblecore?
Yeah.
The whole mumblecore thing.
Yeah.
If you're shooting linear, maybe that will work. Maybe. It probably will go off tangent and get boring at times, and you won't have pacing.
Yeah.
But if you're shooting out of order, and you're doing mumblecore,
Yeah, I don't know how you
it's
could do
going
it.
to be virtually impossible to get a strong story or even a good story because you can't do that with one good actor. You can't do that with two good actors. You have to have every single person in that production be top of their game, and then some, to play out. You have to have actors that have chemistry. You have to have actors that understand how to play off of each other, how to listen to each other.
Sure.
Even when you have a script, you have to listen because inflection can change everything.
Sure, yeah.
So it really is important that your story and your script be a solid starting point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not worth making your movie.
That's right. You're wasting your time.
All right. Well, Willie, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. I've had a great time talking to you guys.
We'll have to have you back again.
Yeah, I'll come back anytime.
And, you know, keep us abreast of what it is you're doing.
Sure.
So that we can keep everybody else informed, because I think one of the things we try to do is bring in the people that, first of all, we respect as talent, whether that's film, music, or whatever, but also that has the experience, the knowledge to pass on to us and other filmmakers like us that are out there that don't have the experience or haven't yet made that mistake.
Sure. Man, I tell you what, people have been so good to me in my career, you know, answering every question I've ever had. I can't tell you how many mentors I've had, people just helping me along as I go. And that's what a film community is.
Absolutely.
You know, we have to help one another. We have to share these things. So I'm all for that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming to the show,
My
ladies
pleasure.
and gentlemen. Willy Bearden, director and co-writer of One Came Home, which is, of course, available right here at Black Lodge Video. I highly recommend it. I'm not usually one for period pieces, but I watched this whole movie start to finish without break, and I really, really was impressed.
Thank you.
And to see that was something that came out of our city and out of our community really gave me hope that, you know, maybe our city can do it. Please.
Yeah, Burke's Books carries the DVD. So if you want to buy one to have for your own collection, you
And
can
I would
get those at
definitely
Burke's.
recommend it. And this would be a great film for grandparents and
Yeah.
things like that as well, because it's a
Absolutely.
nice, strong family piece.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, and we will see you next week on In Frame.
Ask a girl what she wanted to be. She said, baby, can't you see? I want to be famous, a star on the screen, but you can do something in between. Maybe you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star. Maybe you can drive my car. Maybe I love you. I told that girl that my prospects were good. She said, baby, misunderstood. Working for peanuts is all very fine, but I can show you a better time. Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star. Baby, you can drive my car. Baby, I love you. Beep, 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 yeah. Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star. Baby, you can drive my car. Baby, I love you. I told that girl I could stop right away, and she said, listen, babe, I got something to say.